For the symphony, for any orchestra, they need someone in my position to be able to help coordinate all of the things that go on stage with guest artists and conductors. Someone to help plan what it is that is going to be performed. So I look at my job as being sort of an intermediary between the artistic vision of a particular music director and then the guest conductors that we hire, as well as helping to then administer that vision. So that hence my position is quite often called artistic administrator. So you're really involved in all of the aspects of listening to the creative ideas, coordinating them, juggling past performances so that you don't, the knowledge of past performances so that you don't repeat pieces too often, that you have a regular rotation of certain artists through the symphony, and that you plan the pieces that are going to be performed by the orchestra and by the soloists in a way that not only fits with that vision, but also fits with the ability of the orchestra to put those on and have an audience for those pieces and for those concerts. So it's a very complicated balancing act between artistic ideals and administrative reality, both in terms of budget as well as marketing and just the overall use of resources. It's a planning process that starts out a number of years in advance. And it's also not a cut and dried process. It's something that if you've been doing it for a while and doing it for a particular organization for a while, you do it, you certainly have deadlines that you need to work toward. But you begin the planning process way out, say a couple of years out. So, for example, for the 07-08 season that we are working on right now, we've been, it's now July of 06. We've actually been working on planning for that season, 07-08, since last year. So we typically work 2 years out to begin the process of deciding what dates our music director is available to conduct. We get those into the schedule, and then we decide on what conductors we would like to invite. Returning conductors, new conductors, sort of scouting and trying to figure out who's the best person to invite, who are successful people that we would like to invite back. And we start to put that into place. And that's my administrative job, because it's fine for a music director to say, oh, we'd like so-and-so. Then it's my job to contact that person's agent to check out schedule timing, make sure that the dates that we have available are dates that they have available in the schedule, and then it moves on in the course of planning to then get into the detail of what would that person like to perform, what would we like that person to perform, and it's a whole negotiation. And that has to happen for every conductor and guest artist that is invited, that there's the administrative responsibility of making sure that the time is in their calendar, that I'm dealing with their representative, and that I'm also negotiating their contracts. So that's, and then you get into certainly the details of negotiating program, because it is a negotiation. You certainly want to be able to have something that the symphony wants. You know, an all Ligeti festival is necessarily the most practical or the most ideal thing. And so you have to balance between what are very interesting artistic ideas, but also what are the needs of the symphony in terms of putting forth a season. What are the balances? Just because a conductor might want to do the Rachmaninoff Second Symphony, I might have to say, I'm sorry, you can't. We just did that last year and it's too soon to repeat. So I'm sort of in that administrative vortex, trying to coordinate all of the moving pieces. So it's a process that takes place over a fairly long period of time, with the finite deadline being, when do we have to announce that season and send out a brochure? And that's typically in the very early, late winter, early spring, say January or February, prior to the season that's being sold. Yeah. So you work back from there, and you have to make sure that you have everything in place. I think that classical these days both is and needs to be innovative as well. And some of the innovations that we're thinking about have actually happened within our classical season. And I think innovation is true for all of what we do, whether it's the highest art classical subscription concerts that we put on, all of our pops concerts, our special presentations, education concerts that we do here in the hall, as well as go out in the community to do. We try to have a variety and a mix of things that make sense for today's audience. And while some people might think that pops is overtaking, that's actually not really true. Pops has its audience, and it has its following, and has its niche in the community, and it fulfills a certain segment of the population's needs and desires in terms of their orchestral entertainment. But classical is its own audience, and we're not finding that it's dying. I mean, I think it's a much rumored myth that classical music is dying. It's fairly vibrant these days, and certainly here at the Houston Symphony, we are finding that ticket sales are a little bit on the upswing, which is a really good thing. So it doesn't mean that you can sit back and just do standard things, that you have to constantly be thinking about the mix. There are traditional ways of presenting concerts, the typical overture, concerto, symphony that happen in a standard concert format. And while that might be considered old-fashioned or traditional, there is and probably always will be a segment of the population who really crave that, desire it, and I think it will always be alive. But there are also people who are craving different ways of getting their music. They like people to talk. They like having things that accompany the music visually, that there's an opportunity for interaction, that there's an explanation that might happen. And it's trying to gauge the temperature of that in today's cultural scene that is, I think, the biggest challenge for all orchestras, is getting the mix right, and trying to be thinking always about new and different ways that we might be able to present our music while still being true to the music and respectful of the music, trying to think about different ways to reach out and connect with the changing audience. One of the biggest advents that has happened is the use of video screens in the hall. We're lucky enough to have had a grant from a foundation to be able to provide cameras and permanently placed video screens and a whole video system that gives us a huge amount of flexibility to be able to add visual elements when and if warranted in a particular concert format. So we're lucky enough to be able to use this whole video system in Jones Hall, and we use it for a variety of things. There's just the practicality of donor recognition. It's a great way to advertise upcoming concerts, to recognize sponsors, and that's a very important of the business of the arts, to be able to figure out ways in which to give your sponsors visibility. Another thing that we do with the screens for classical concerts is rather than necessarily having a piece of something printed in the program magazine, we might choose to put the words, the translations of a particular piece up on the screens, sort of like the whole opera situation in surtitles. So we're able to use the screens in that way. Then there are other ways in which we use the screens. One is to have sort of a live, sort of in-house video feed where the cameras are showing close-up shots of the players, chorus members, the conductors, whoever the performers are on stage, especially for people who are back further in the hall or up in the balconies where they're not so immediate to the stage. And it then helps to bring those people especially closer to what is happening on the stage, and a little, just sort of bringing it all home a little bit with a little bit more impact, so that distance from the stage is not so much an issue. And we use that certainly for a lot of our education concerts. It's a great way to be able to show the kids up close what's happening on the stage. And because kids these days are so visually oriented, it's a great thing to be able to grab and keep their attention in ways that maybe just a pure piece of music might not. There's also some interesting ways that we've been able to use the screens for classical concerts, where we've been able to, for example, when we did the complete music of Stravinsky's Firebird, one of the things that one of my colleagues did was research some of the original costume drawings by Bakst and Goncharova, and artists that were involved in the original productions by Stravinsky with the Diaghilev Ballet Russe company. We were able to find still shots of the original costumes for the various characters during the ballet. And as the story was unfolding in music, we were able to show the costumes, both in general, just a far away shot, but also some glorious detail of the original costume drawings as the characters for those costumes were being portrayed in the music. So it was a very interesting way to be able to provide a visual element for an oral story. Another thing that we've been able to do with the video screens is with a piece, Bartók, Wooden Prince. It's a fairly dense score. It's about 45 minutes long, also originally written as a ballet. One of the things that we were able to do with that was take the Bartók's original stage instructions that are written in the score. We translated those from into English, and then we were able to, as the music was unfolding, sort of have a story unfold in sort of scene titles on the screens as people listened, so they could connect with what was happening in the music and what Bartók was trying to portray dramatically in the music. And it really brought it into stark relief what was happening in the music as the story unfolded. And so many people felt that the feedback from the audience was that being able to see this story unfold in just these simple scene titles really brought the music home in a deeper, more connected way than maybe just sitting and listening to the music without that aid. And so again, we try to be respectful of the music, try not to do anything that's going to interfere with the performance and the classical music performance and the purity of that, but find different ways, different points of entry in for people with technology. It's not just the Houston Symphony, it's the whole industry trying to find different ways to sell popular concerts, just sort of, let's get that revenue in the door. There's a practicality of it. Let's get people in the seats. Let's find things that they'll connect to. And so I like to think of all the things that we look at and that we do as an array of things where, that we have something for everyone. It's not a question of, we're an orchestra, we only do just the purest Mahler and Bruckner and Bartók and Stravinsky and Brahms and Beethoven. I think it's a question of making the orchestra a resource for the community and having the broadest spectrum of things available. And we're not the only ones who are looking for that. There are organizations, agencies, trying to figure out ways in which they can package products that the symphonies are going to be able to play and going to be able to sell. So getting around to your question is, sometimes these things are prepackaged for us. There's somebody's had an idea and said, oh, the way that people first heard their first classical music was in some of this magnificent concert music or the cartoon music that was written based on the music of some great composers, whether it was Strauss or Wagner or Beethoven or Rossini. And this music showed up in great Bugs Bunny cartoons. And so somebody a while ago had the idea, why don't I get the rights and package and coordinate the playing of the music for a live orchestra to the actual cartoon clips. And so that was a package that we knew existed, that an agent, was trying to sell to us. And we said, yeah, well, we think that might match our what our audience might want, and we'll be able to sell that. There are some things like that you have to sort of create on your own, and that aren't packaged, and that takes resources and time and the creativity and imagination to think about them. But certainly we try to do that too, whether it's something as simple as scene titles for Bartók, or whether it's talking with a performance arts group like the Art Guys of Houston, and having them from scratch work with our music director Hans Graf and create this whole lighting scape for a performance of Bartók's Bluebeard's Castle, which is originally a one-act or a short one-act opera, but trying to create a dramatic lighting scape for the performance of that we had to do from scratch, and it was the first time that it was ever done, and it was a fascinating project to work on. So some of these things come to us as packages. Some of the things we seek out and want to create ourselves, and I think that everybody in the industry is trying to think innovatively in terms of what's out there, what are ways that we can connect to the audience of today. Now, certainly the leitmotif that is going through what we've talked about in terms of technology are things that are visual. And it does seem to be the trend these days that people are, in the society today, are more visually oriented. And so it seems to be a way that orchestras are trying to connect and bring people in who might not necessarily have the background in classical music, but might find the addition of, for example, film clips from NASA and Hubble Space Telescope, and some of the Voyager and Magellan missions that happened, pairing that with Holst the Planets. Now, that's not an idea we came up with, but we were very happy that it was a package that was available for us to buy and be able to present to our audience, because people responded incredibly well to that, especially being here in Houston, home of NASA. For example, in the case of Bugs Bunny and Broadway, I, as the Senior Director of Artistic Planning, or my colleague Amanda Tozzi, who works in popular programming, one of us might contact the agent. We know that this package is available, and we will find out what is involved in that package, what comes with it. We'll cost it out. We'll figure out, for whatever amount of money they are asking for the package, which could include, film rights, orchestral scores, music for the orchestral players, technical assistance. They might bring some equipment. They might bring screens. What does it exactly involve? And they will sort of come in. They'll set it up. They'll give us what we need. It's a very technical thing, so we'll have our operations people interface with their operations people to be able to get the right equipment that we need here in the hall, all coordinated. Quite often these things have click track, which is another technology that is important if you're going to be coordinating live music to a very specific video image. Sometimes you'll need a click track, like when we did the Alexander Nevsky cantata, which was originally music that Prokofiev wrote for a film. It was a very involved, sort of click track system for the conductor, and Hans Graf actually conducted that, and to coordinate the film with the orchestra and all of it had to be coordinated just so. And so again, that was one of those packages that we find out exactly what they provide. We see if we can afford it. We cost it out, and we figure out what it comes with. Does it come with a conductor, or do we need to provide a conductor? Does it come with the scores, the music, or do we need to rent that from a publisher? All of the details involved in putting on a concert, and one that has an added level of technical complexity. We have to make sure that that the cost, the technical prowess that is needed for it, is something that we can handle, and that we then analyze it and look to make sure that we think that it is a product that we are proud to put on the stage with the Houston Symphony, and one that our marketing department then in turn can sell. These are single engagement packages that you need to contract for. So you, just like you would hire an artist, whether it's conductor Peter Unjen or Klaus-Peter Flor, or whether it's Yo-Yo Ma, you engage their services for a set period, or a set single concert, or a couple of concerts, or 3 concerts, and you have a contract for that. So too with some of these popular artists, or the film packages that we can buy. You engage them for a particular set of performances. I certainly think it's a question of balance for the Houston Symphony and all orchestras to figure out how to maintain the importance and the relevance of classical music in today's culture, while also being innovative and trying to respond to changing cultural tastes and needs and changing technology, so that we get the balance right. So that if we pursue too much the innovation and just the desires of society, are we going to be abandoning the purist, if you will, and the more traditional classical music, or can we keep that in the right balance? And so I think that it's very important to maintain an incredibly strong connection with the educational community, partnerships with schools, and that's something that we take incredibly seriously. We throw a lot of resources at it, and we're continually looking for ways in which we can reach out to the community, to young people, to help make up for some of the lack of music education in the schools, to be able to plant the seed in the young generations so that we will have audiences for the future, and making sure that we maintain our cultural responsibility as an orchestra to do what it is an orchestra does best, and which really no other group can, which is at the highest possible level, playing the classics of the repertoire, but also finding the niche in today's society for access to programs, a broad spectrum and a diversity of programming, to be able to appeal to the Houston community, or to any community, as a resource for that community, and that orchestral music can be a bridge to so many kinds of experiences for any community.